It's great to be with you this morning, all the way from the great state of California, specifically Northern California and the greater Sacramento area. So you're currently the CEO and founder of Foresight IT, a company that provides top-tier managed IT services and solutions. But to be fair, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So throughout your career, you've worn many hats: tech strategist, adjunct professor, board member, investor, gaining experience across startups, corporate environments, and of course, a dedicated family man. And I was sat here thinking, is there anything that you don't do? I mean, we had snow recently, and do you ski?
I do. I like skiing and snowboarding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've had some fresh snow recently, so yeah, I try to get up there as much as possible. Well, I was really looking forward to this conversation today since we both work, in technology, and we spend a lot of time tracking maybe what's hot and what's not. And I'd love to get your take on a few key trends that are maybe shaping the industry right now. And who knows, maybe there are some business leaders tuning in right now. Maybe they're evaluating their technology roadmap, and maybe they'll get some takeaways from our conversation, or maybe they might reach out after. So obviously, you've been in the MSP space for quite some time now. Like, how do you feel managed service providers right now are evolving in what is quite an interesting landscape? Where are they innovating right now?
I think not all managed service providers are, honestly.
Mm,
We being foresighted, we consider ourselves as definitely evolving. And I think the ways in which most are evolving that I see, or at least the path that we're going on, is a heavy focus on information security. So
mhm,
my background, my co-founder's background, several of our partners' backgrounds, and our technical team has
mm,
deep knowledge in information security. Um, we've got a member on the team that was formerly an ethical hacker for the United States Air Force, for example.
right.
Um, I previously ran IT and information security for what is now a $5 billion bank here in Sacramento. It's River City
Mm,
Bank, the bank that I actually serve on the board of directors for now as well.
yeah.
And so a lot of that work was in the security space, and we jump in wholeheartedly there and focus on just you know strengthening our mid-market clients information security programs, whether that means just something like oversight for
Mhm,
their internal team. We're perfectly happy to provide that from a strategic standpoint. We deploy our information security stack, we manage that stack, and then we
mhm,
serve as a resource, an escalation resource for their teams when it comes to security incidents or security preparation. Is how we like to get involved in the preparation side before the incident actually occurs. But
yeah.
sometimes it's more hindsighted. We get brought in after the fact. But
Yeah.
creating a whole information security program, start to finish, those are ways in which managed security providers are evolving, and definitely one of the ways we choose to do so.
Interesting. And I mean, it's interesting you bring up the topic of security or cyber security. And really, this is probably an area that's a top priority for a lot of businesses right now. Are you seeing specific trends within IT security right now? And if so, are there recommendations that you would typically make to small or medium or even large enterprises right now?
So yes, first off, I'll say that a focus on information security is nothing new,
Hmm.
but it's this evolution that it just continues to become more and more important, and the information security threat landscape itself evolves and has evolved quite a bit over the last, say, 5 to 10 years. um, Practical tips or practical tools that have been in the evolution of information security and proper security management. I'd say one, immutable backups is it's first and foremost. Ransomware uh, is still a very real threat, and not only are we trying to block it actively, right, but we've got to be prepared for the event in which ransomware slips past the lines of defense. And we
Hmm.
need to be able to have immutable backups that can be recovered from. Immutable just means it can't be changed, so that the attackers can't encrypt the backups when they're encrypting the main file system. So we went air gapped. that's something that, every business needs to have. Uh, managed detection and response, MDR, overarching umbrella, if you will. If you think about traditional security tools like antivirus, those are signature based. That's like having the security guard, the bouncer at the door the entrance of the business, just checking a known list of criminals. And as people walk in, they're like, "Nope, you're not on my list. Come on, go ahead. Next criminal or next person comes up, they check their list of known criminals. Nope, not on my list. Come on in." That's traditional signature based antivirus. EDR or MDR, more overarching, is like having an undercover detective that's just sitting there like off to the side, and they're looking for behavioral anomalies. So things like establishing persistence. That's something that an attacker is going to do right off the bat. They're looking for anything. They're not just looking at basic signatures. They're looking at behavioral traits, if you will. That's part of the evolution, I would say. And then also falling under the MDR umbrella is the business email compromise detection. So for the first time in at least 5 years, maybe longer, 2024, ransomware was on the decline. Reported losses from ransomware was on the decline. And it was the losses from cyber attacks for business email compromise exceeded the losses for the first time of ransomware. And so ITDR, or identity threat detection and response, is a layer that you can plug into your Microsoft 365 or G Suite to be able to detect and respond to, potentially lock out the affected account or accounts when an attacker has compromised a person's email account, gotten in and been able to establish rules to move messages around.
Interesting. And are you seeing particular industries that are being targeted? Obviously, yourself, you've got a lot of experience within financial services, but is it agnostic of injury right now? What you're seeing and what you're hearing, and a lot of people talk about Bitcoin when it comes to ransomware attacks. Is that still a thing right now?
It is. Funny enough, a lot to unpack there. So let's go with the first part of the question, which is specific industries. I'd say broadly that it's become very easy now for very shotgunned approaches to phishing, spear phishing campaigns, using tools that are AI based, machine learning based, large language model based, to be able to do at a broad scale, very targeted attacks. So it used to be that a human would have to go and do a bunch of research on LinkedIn and look up a lot of information on somebody's website to be able to do a very sophisticated target attack. It would take a human many, many hours of reconnaissance, and a human attacker would have to spend that time. Now with AI ML tools, these attackers can do very sophisticated, very targeted attacks in a shotgun approach. They don't need to spend the human time to go do that research. And so that's done frequently across a multitude of industries. And then once there's a foothold established, then the attackers, then a human gets involved oftentimes to figure out how are we best going to leverage this persistency that we gained. Are we in someone's mailbox? Whose mailbox is it? How do we then pivot around? Are we on somebody's PC? What PC are we on? How do we then pivot around to get to valuable info? That's the approach that's like industry agnostic, company size agnostic. I will say, when it comes to ransomware and when it comes to business account email compromise, there are industries that do get targeted beyond the shotgun approach. And if you're in an industry that deals with a high amount of sensitive information, so personally identifiable information, personal health information, if you've got trade secrets, if you're in any of those industries, you're definitely a target. People will want to come in there. They then exfiltrate your data, hold that exfiltration for ransom. They may not even encrypt your data. They just may threaten to release it to the public if you don't pay them. Okay, so that puts you at a risk there. If you're an industry that moves large amounts of money around, So if you're a general contractor, for example, you're receiving huge, multi-million dollar
For
payments
sure.
from developers frequently, and then you're sending $1 million or hundreds of thousands of dollars out regularly to your subcontractors. You're processing large amounts of payments. If you're in an industry like that deals with large dollar amount payments, that's another one that's ripe for attack. And most of the time, that's in the business email compromise space.
Hmm.
The attackers will go after the people that are, in the finance or accounting department, try to
Hmm.
infiltrate their systems, and then try to reroute money to different bank accounts. Frequently in the United States, by the way, because it's always a red flag when it's sent overseas. So they'll reroute to another bank in the United States where they then have
Yeah.
money mules that they've recruited from Craigslist to go and withdraw that money real quickly and send it out in Bitcoin,
Yeah.
like you mentioned.
And yeah, and on that point, then maybe if we think about that, are a lot of these threats coming from internally inside our borders here in the US or California, or are we still seeing a lot of, out of country activity?
It's both.
Mm,
And I will say that out of country activity has gotten smarter.
okay.
They, like I mentioned, using banks in the United States.
Yeah.
Even if the attacker is coming from out of country, they will frequently leverage a bank account that's been established in the United States. They'll pay a remote attacker will pay someone on Craigslist to
Hmm.
respond to an ad to set up a fake DBA account at a bank, and it's a real human and it's got a real social security number and there's a real person behind it. But that person pleads ignorance when the FBI comes along. They don't know. They just signed up for a job that was posted on
Yeah.
Craigslist. They didn't know anything about it, right?
Yeah.
And so that could be an attacker from anywhere in the world that is then able to make themselves available stateside. That's on the money movement side. When it comes to attacking a network, an attack can originate from overseas, but again, leveraging a compromised system that exists here in the United States. And it doesn't have to be a business system, it can be some random grandparent system
Hmm.
that's in, Florida.
Yeah.
They've infiltrated that home computer, and then they use that to go out and attack various businesses. So they got a foothold somewhere in the United States, and therefore circumventing the blocking of different regions, which we do. We recommend that.
Hmm.
It's definitely a security layer that we still leverage, is to
Yeah.
block unnecessary country codes from being able to sign into Microsoft 365 or being able to sign in to VPN connections or things like that. But those are
Yeah.
things that sophisticated attackers are working around very easily.
And by the sounds of it, this problem isn't going anywhere, is it?
Mm-mm.
If anything, I agree with you. It's getting so much more sophisticated than, I'm not sure how you feel, but sometimes I feel like maybe I am a little bit surprised how businesses maybe aren't prepared for some of this type of stuff. Do you still see quite a bit of that?
Yes, and I think the reason why you see so many businesses that are still unprepared
Mm,
is because there's no amount of a preparation you can do to make yourself completely insulated
secure.
from this risk. I don't care what your IT budget is. I don't care what your information security budget is. I don't care who your team is. You can
Hmm.
never be 100% secure. So a lot of business owners go, I can't solve that problem, so I'm not going to focus on it. And
Mm,
that's the wrong
the
mindset.
problem.
Okay. Just because you can't fix it up to be 100% bulletproof doesn't mean you don't work to continuously evolve and make yourself more secure, dependent
Hmm.
on your level of risk tolerance, your budget, your level of sophistication and complexity. And that's where we come in to have that discussion with the executive team at the business. And we treat cyber risk just like any other layer of, or any other type of risk management that a business owner has to deal with. And we run a
Yeah.
risk management methodology through that. Starts with an assessment of the risk. When we
Hmm.
go through, like, how do we mitigate those, and then we talk about what we're willing to accept, and then we talk about insurance, and then still residual exposure, because there's still frequently residual exposure. And as business owners, myself included in that matter, we're all, to a certain extent, a portion of our job is managing risks, not just
Yeah.
cyber risk, all risk.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was just, you mentioned businesses may be choosing where they invest. And obviously security, as we're chatting, is a hot topic, but, cloud obviously is something that we continue to talk about. And, companies are evaluating their cloud strategy. Like, what are you seeing? What are you hearing right now when it comes to cloud?
Still a large push for cloud. You know, it. I think most businesses have evolved now to be a cloud first type of decision making when it comes to infrastructure. They look to go to the cloud first. If they can't get the solution that they need in the cloud, then they will deploy, via on-premise or private cloud.
Yep.
Whether you're on public cloud, like I think about, AWS or Microsoft Azure or Microsoft 365, Google, those are the big public cloud providers. But if you can't do public cloud, then you kind of come to the intermediate, which is private cloud. It may be servers running in a data center effectively that you may have control over, Windows or Linux based. And then if that still isn't going to work for them, then bringing that on premise to their own location. I think that's how most businesses today are evaluating their cloud strategies. But there's security is only one component, and there are real security benefits in some cases to going to the cloud. And then there can be security risks in going to the cloud, and there's no one right solution.
Yeah. And presumably as well, I still chat to businesses and leaders that are running a hybrid model as well, where
absolutely,
that seems to be something that, is also quite popular, right?
I don't think we have a single client that is on premise only anymore.
Yeah.
So that, if you go back 10 years ago, there were clients that way. 20 years ago, definitely you had on premise only. But today, every business that I can think of has at least some cloud service, whether it's email, like through G Suite or Microsoft and 365, or whether it's their, accounting platform or their HR management platform. Like one of those at least is going to be cloud-based. And for most businesses, we definitely have some clients, and it's growing, especially the smaller, the more of a startup the company is, the more likely they're going to be cloud only. They have no on-premise infrastructure except maybe a firewall. But sometimes not even that. They may be permanently remote, all distributed workforce, and therefore they're not using any hardware-based firewalls.
For sure. When we start talking about, security and cloud, and you're mentioning different sizes of organizations, like, is there these days like the optimum IT department structure to be had? Because it seems so flexible these days. Like, what do you see? What do you think is the best way to go?
I think the easy answer for me is to say no, but I hate that. I can give you, actually, I feel like I can give you what I view as the best structure for a business. And the best structure for a business, if you have unlimited budget, but you still want to spend your money wisely. Okay. And that's, no business has unlimited budget, but let's assume you do. But every business wants to spend whatever budget they have wisely. What you want to build is an internal IT team that focuses on the differentiated components of your technology stack, the needle movers for your business. And I don't care how big the business is, every business has something that pertains to technology that makes them a little bit unique, a little different than any other business out there. Where budget allows, you want those resources to be internal employees, only focused on your environment. Because they will get to know your business, the way you operate, way better than any managed technology provider ever will. And as more budget allows and more complexity that you have, and the more of these nuanced, make you special secret sauce technology elements you have, the more dollars you spend on people internally to build out the support of those special technology needs, the differentiated components. Now, with that said, anything that's non-differentiated, which I'm talking about homogeneous technology management, that's the same across any business that happens to be in your space, that's best outsourced for a couple of reasons. There's great economies of scale when you can outsource the non-differentiated components of technology. Rather than paying, you get redundancy there by being able to outsource it to a team. You get high repeatability because these folks have, like us, we manage a ton of firewalls. We manage a ton of network switches. We manage a whole ton of security agents that are deployed across thousands and thousands of endpoints out there.
Yeah.
We can manage that stuff so very well, and for very cost efficient approach. Think of like hiring and staffing your own security operations team inside a business that's 300 or 500 employees in size or something like that, let alone at 10 or 20 employees in size. But you're not, that doesn't make sense. You're going to staff that 24/7 for response. Like, that's a nightmare to staff internally when every business has to deal with that in some regard. So why not outsource that security operations center to a partner, trusted partner, that's what they do. They just do that. Much better bang for your buck. So that's the optimum structure. Now, here's the deal. Not many businesses, I shouldn't say that, not many small businesses, and I think of, say, sub 500 employees. Mid-market's technically, most people define mid-market as somewhere between 200 and 1,000 employees. So think sub 1,000 even in this.
Yep.
Not many of those businesses have the budget to staff that full department internally, like I talked about. So you can do a hybrid approach.
Yeah. That
still works for them. Once you get below 200 employees, which that's like, I don't remember, I forget the statistic, but that's like 98% of businesses in the world that are less than 200 employees in size. Okay. They may have the budget to staff one person, an IT director, or, maybe it's a help desk person, whatever, one person, but one person does not make a department, does not make 24/7, does not offer any level of continuity. And so what most businesses that are under that threshold do is they may hire one person internally, and then they go with a co-managed partner like us to manage the other areas of infrastructure management and information security, blending the internal knowledge of their internal leader with our outsourced approach to non-differentiated components technology. Once you're less than 100 people in size, the typical optimal structure is to go with just a managed IT, like a managed IT and information security trusted partner. And it's very cost efficient for us to perform those services compared to hiring, again, a very high level leader within the organization, let alone two of those people for redundancy purposes. We provide those services much, much more cost effectively.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting stuff. And, I wanted to round out today, and, I really appreciate you, taking some time to talk to me. You can't escape AI right now. You turn on the news, it's on LinkedIn. I mean, it's absolutely everywhere. It's coming up in private conversations with family and friends. Like, can I maybe get your take on AI and where we're heading with it, and maybe maybe how you're feeling about it, and maybe are you getting asked about it by your customers right now?
Yeah, I get asked about it a lot. I mean, any time a new technology comes out, clients and, like you mentioned, family members too, anybody that knows that, if we have a technical bend to us, they're going to ask our, this was, crypto was the thing, 5 years ago,
For sure.
that everyone wanted to learn about. So they come to us and ask about it. So of course we're fielding those questions around AIs. My personal kind of feelings around it are, I guess, could be summed up with cautious optimism and excitement. Why do I say optimistic and excitement? Well, one, I'm a technology guy, and whenever there's any kind of cool new technology, I'm interested in it. I want to learn about it and leverage it and figure out ways in which we can make it work for us. And that's what makes me excited about AI. There are some really great tools out there. I mean, Chat GPT and Grok you got, and then you get those, and then you've got tools built into your various platforms, mostly cloud-based, to leverage large language models and AI. That's one thing about it that excites me. But I'd also say that from the cautious component to me comes up because it's still so new. We don't know. we don't know the risks yet. I
Yeah.
mean, we can obviously come up with the risks around Copilot. I thinking about OpenAI and Microsoft's partnership surrounding Copilot, and around data disclosures and things of that nature. There's some risk, but just this is clearly very smart and forward thinking technology, and where does that go
Yeah.
5 years from now, 10 years from now? What does that look like? There are real risks to think about
Hmm.
there. Um, I'd also say, it without a doubt, the criminals use this stuff too, and it makes our lives harder on the defensive side. Well,
Yeah.
certainly in some ways it helps us, but it also makes it more difficult because it makes the criminals appear smarter.
Hmm.
So that part gives me some hesitation. Overall, we look to embrace it. I'd say most of the time with clients, they're finding great benefits in using the large language model tools
Yeah.
out there. They're finding good benefits in, say, using Perplexity for research.
Hmm.
Um, but they're they are still collaborating with us around, like, what are the practical uses beyond
Yeah.
just the helping draft emails or helping draft memos or spell grammar checking and those
Hmm.
very basic rudimentary purposes? How do we, if I'm an engineering firm, how do I use AI to analyze and give a second set of eyes, if you will,
Hmm.
to some of our CAD renderings? And we have those types of discussions, and that's just one example, but every industry has that question, like, how can we use AI to do this main portion of our business? And I haven't seen yet where that we don't have that. We haven't seen humans get replaced there yet,
Yeah.
and it's more of an augmentation, which I think we're going to be in that space for a while, an augmentation.
Yeah, for sure. I think to a certain extent, maybe there's like almost an argument that there's unlimited use cases. I think there's an
Yeah,
element of
definitely.
FOMO. Everyone's looking over their shoulder what other people are doing. Maybe they should be focusing on what they're doing and where they can implement it first. But I do feel like we live in an interesting time, and we'll see. And like with anything, it was a bit like the dot-com. Maybe some unintended consequences will come from it, but I'm sure the
I,
majority are
I
going to
don't
be
see how it
good.
can't be that way.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't. I think it has to do
Yeah.
just what you're saying. These unintended consequences. It's so new. I mean, whatever. AI and machine learning have been around since, I guess, the 80s. I remember studying AI in my college computer science classes in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so this technology has been around for a long time. We've now made significant advancements in the utilization and the depth of the thinking that these models can now do. Huge advancement. But so that's why I say it's new. This new way of using the technology is so new. It's just like saying the internet was new in the 90s. The internet wasn't new in the 90s, and around since the 70s.
Yeah. Right.
It wasn't new. This was
Yeah.
20-year-old technology. But it was new to the public then. And if you think about the unlimited ways in which we use the internet today that no one would have thought about in the mid
Yeah.
90s when it was first becoming popular, I think we're gonna. I think we have to see the same thing happen with AI. It has to go that way.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way. No other way it
For
doesn't.
sure. For sure. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I remember growing up in the sort of the pre-post internet era and how much it's impacted all our lives. And I think about my kids now growing up and thinking, they don't know they don't know what's coming. So yeah, lots of exciting things to look forward to. Well, look,
That's what I think. Um, you mentioned we live in interesting times, and
mm,
that's the best part. I mean, I just think about, name one of what name first off. When in history has it ever not been interesting times? It's always interesting times. Never. You can go back as far back as humans have ever existed.
yeah.
It's always interesting. And yes, this is also interesting, but I can't. I'm personally very excited for the point in time we happen to be in now, and I know that I'm excited about it because
Hmm.
if I think back personally to any other time in history that I'd prefer to be alive than now, I can't think of one. I can't think of one decade, let alone a 40-year period, let alone a
Hmm.
hopefully I live 90 years, right? I can't think of a 90-year period that I'd rather be alive than than
Then right
right now.
now. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I love that optimism. I think there's too much negativity out there about a lot of
So
things. And I feel like,
fear
people,
sells a lot more than
yeah,
optimism does.
people don't realize maybe how good they've got it.
Yeah.
So, well, look, Eric, I've really enjoyed speaking to you today. Thanks for just, getting your take on a few things. I know we sort of covered a bit about, security, a bit of cloud, a bit AI. Hopefully we'll get to chat again soon. But if people need you, where can they find you?
Yeah.
What's the
So
best?
if you can email us at connect@foresight.it, or just hit us up on our website,
Hmm.
foresight.it. And we're here to help. We've got a great team, and we love helping businesses navigate their technology challenges.
For sure. And I've only heard good things about yourself and the organization from people that I know,
Yeah.
here in California. So awesome. Well, have a great day. We'll chat soon.